Another day. More fun questions.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
There we go.
Welcome to our live chat.
With something before I can get on, so
I'm sorry.
I'm here. I'm in the background. I just can't.
He says welcome, and he'll be there in a minute. Hey, Mary. How are you? Pop out my chat. Nice to see you.
There we go.
Julia says, hey, everyone. Hi, Julia.
Oh.
Yes. Mute yourself. Ruth says, hi, all. Hi, Ruth. All right. Got 3 people. We're good to go. Did anyone else get to see the eclipse yesterday? It wasn't us. We had clouds everywhere. Mary says, I'm good. Hope you are all well. I haven't caught a live in a while. I know. It's been a while since we've seen you on our screen. Welcome back. Or welcome. However we want to phrase that. So, not too many clouds. Well, good. Did you get to see it then? We had too many clouds here. Oh, you said no, too many clouds. Yes. My daughter on the other side of town got to see it for 3 seconds. Apparently the clouds parted just enough for her to see it, and then it was gone. But over here, it didn't happen, so oh well. Jono says, hi guys. Hi, Jono. Sandra says, hi everyone. Hi. Mary says, thanks, been traveling. Julia says, live in the East here, so no, save on video. Yeah, I did that too. I actually, since we couldn't see it here, I got on YouTube and watched it live in Arizona. So it was, after it happened here, but hey, I got to see it do its thing, so that was fun. Like, sort of experience that. Ian says, hello and blessed be any new viewers and everyone else. Feel free to chat about magical and mystical subjects.
Yep. That's what I say.
Yep, absolutely. So we're getting closer to the roof being done, and we've got everything packed up now except for the altar behind me. I think we're actually going to be in the temple next Sunday because the earliest date for them to do the roof is the 23rd, which will be the Monday after. So we'll still be in here. Mary says, Ian, I enjoyed your last vid.
Thank you.
Ruth says, no, we had clouds. Aw. Sundrop says, how about cursed objects? What about cursed objects? There's different ways of thinking about objects. Whether they're cursed or not is a different thing, I think,
Removing
altogether.
the curse, or how to deal with them,
or how can you tell? There's haunted objects for sure. There are some objects that are like ancient relics that shouldn't be picked up off the ground, that some people have had experiences with that have been seriously bad. So if you go to a sacred place, don't take anything back from it, because a lot of times the spirits of the area will see that as a violation. We encountered some objects in a secondhand antique shop that no one should have ever had and that were for sale, which concerned me for the potential buyers buying them. In particular, a medicine box which was from Indonesia, and it was alive, that still had its protective spirit in it, which I could sense and feel as soon as I looked at it, and it had a lot of teeth, and it was there to keep people who weren't allowed to touch it from touching it. And you could think of that as a curse, but it would just be a natural response. Like, no one ever should have touched this object. It either should have been buried with the owner or given to family So it makes me think that family went and sold it, or they were robbed, because there was a lot of stuff in that guy's section that came from real temples. There was a scrying bowl from a Santeria kind of space, and a few other things. So, I mean, when you say that an object is cursed, it could be a misnomer. And it says, sorry, Ian, I haven't watched your video yet. Do you feel good about it?
I do. My only concern about the video is that maybe people weren't that interested in the subject, but I also didn't mention in the video, and I probably should have, that like a perfect gurus don't have to be alive. You can use a picture of a guru, or Barden puts lots of his pictures in his books. There's a lot of picture of Barden's in his physical versions of the books. So I would say he makes a perfect subject for guru worship, even though his body is physically dead at this point. That was about the only thing I could add to it. Otherwise, it's just kind of an open-minded discussion, not biased towards or against the subject, just about the subject and in general.
So Julia says, take them over this way about 1,000 miles or more is even better, points to any direction away from me as far as cursed objects are concerned. Sundrop says, objects you can curse are cursed and haunted the same. How would you properly dispose of them? No, cursed and haunted are not the same. And like I said, curse is kind of in some cases, it can be an appearance of a curse, but it's not as a protective device that you've activated, like some of the things that happen to archaeologists when they dig up a tomb. It's magical protection that is triggered when someone violates a space. I don't know why you would want to curse an object in particular. So I don't have any information on how to go about that, because that's not something I would ever do. Haunted objects are because someone was attached to an object when they were alive, and their energy is still there when they pass. They're still like part of them there.
Cursed objects could potentially be caused accidentally. Like if somebody was holding a particular object where they go through a really intense trauma, and if some of that energy gets put into that object, then people could pick up on that afterwards, and that could be like a cursed object. I know for sure that people collect things that real magical practitioners and such used, because that energy can help them in their own practices. So especially in like Tibet and that, there's a real thing about collecting bones or anything from an individual who was exceptional spiritually, to get some of that spiritual energy through. And the same thing can happen accidentally to objects. So you can have accidentally, objects that cause bad reactions, which you might call a cursed object, even though nobody purposely cursed it, but those can usually be cleansed out by using some form of cleansing method.
And she also adds, how would you properly dispose of them? In most cases, burying them in the ground would be the most common way of disposing of them.
And one of the most effective.
Yeah. In some cases, you don't want to burn them, because that can sometimes release the energy in a different way. Mary says, I thought it was quite interesting and informative about your video.
Thank you.
Laud says, hello everyone, glad to be here. Hi, Laud. Sundrop says, like in the movie Child's Play, can you really transfer a soul to a doll or object? Some people think that they can, and that would be a dark practice that I would not recommend. Yeah. If it is possible, it's a dangerous thing to do, because anything that you try to coerce and to take under your control that actually has a will of its own is going to turn on you at its first opportunity.
Of course, there's also the idea you can build like an elemental, or elemental isn't the right word necessarily. You could, because it could be condensed light force, but you can sort of make artificial beings, is what I'm trying to say, that you can put into objects for good or bad purposes. It doesn't really come under the heading of a soul, however.
Right, that's a different thing.
Yeah, they have no self-will for self-determination in general, the beings you can put into objects like that you've created. And again, it would be totally black magic to put one in there that has a soul or is, has any form of intellect of its own, that type of thing.
Yeah, that'd be the darkest magic there is.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So Beth says, greetings one and all. Hi, Beth. Jono says, I'm definitely going to watch it. I've just had life stuff keeping me busy. Thanks for doing the video. I would love to know your perspective. Awesome. We'll look forward to seeing what you think. Desdoradum says, howdy, y'all. Hi, Des. Julia says, not a soul, Sundrop. The soul can't be trapped, sold, or things like that.
Well, that's it.
That would be my opinion, but some people like to say that it can, and if it can, it would be bad and not a good idea.
Well, at any rate, a subject for lots. That's a big subject.
It's a big subject.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah. Desi says, I came early this time. Yes, you did. And come in for all the funds. Sundrop says, okay, thanks, Julia. I've seen movies where souls are transferred to dolls. Just wondering if it's true. I don't think it's true personally. And movies are fantasy, and they can do anything they want in a movie, and it doesn't have to have any basis whatsoever in reality.
Now that makes me feel like I should add one more thing to that, though. That's in some of the darker magical arts related to like Palo and them, and some of the darker Voodoo arts and things. They one of the things they do apparently or supposedly. And I don't know enough about the subject, no personal experience with it to know if it's true, but they have methods whereby they capture the soul of someone who's dead and capture it to be a slave for them after life. So,
there are belief systems for sure.
What's that? Yes. So whether that works or not, I don't know, and I have no desire to investigate it. But there are practices designed towards capturing a soul after the death, and some of them are pretty nasty. Some of them and it doesn't necessarily have to be a human soul. Some of them are animal souls, but usually you torture the animal ahead of time, make it your slave as part of it. And like I say, I don't know specific details, and I have no desire to find them out, but there are practices designed along those lines, and I wouldn't touch them with a 90-foot pole.
No kidding, neither would I. So Jono says, Dizzy, here before the last 20 minutes. Yay! Taylor says, hello everyone. Hi, Taylor. Desi says, as far as I understand, a doll can be a house or dwelling place for a spirit, but they can come and go. By the way, ammonia destroys etheric energy connection too.
And your nose.
Yeah. Mary says, this is true in voodoo.
I seem to have...
Not in voodoo, but in voodoo.
Well, voodoo
which is a different...
Not really.
No, wrong one.
Voodoo and voodoo are basically... voodoo is just like a slang nomenclature for voodoo. Usually they're referring to the same thing, but the very serious practitioners will call it voodoo, and the street people who want to go to a botanica and buy a hex will usually voodoo or hoodoo sometimes, which is a blend.
But Palo is what I was trying to think of.
Yes,
that's the one that's purely negative as far as we know.
I don't know enough about it to know, honestly. I really don't. All I know is I've run across some seriously negative aspects that were genuine, not fictional. But I don't know anything else about Palo in particular other than I knew somebody who was involved in it. But it was not one of the subjects I was interested in finding out much about.
So, Taylor says, I also finished watching y'all's new video. Is there a comparison between studying a now person guru and higher self? Almost finished. Non-person, my bad. A non-person guru and higher self.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. It could be a dead guru. There's also, and I use the word guru, but a lot of people have used the word holy guardian angel. And that is a being from the earth zone that's assigned to teach you like a guru and can be worshipped and worked with exactly like a human guru. And The idea is to work with the one that's associated with you specifically, and according to Barden and others, they are there, and that can be your true guru, but it can be a spirit being that's never been incarnated, or it can be a being that used to be incarnated on Earth and has advanced to the point of being able to guide you or other aspects. So the main thing is, if you're looking at like the being they call a holy guardian angel, or the guru that might be able to reach on the other planes, they get to that position by being a lot less fallible than a human guru. Meditation on a human guru is a lot better for somebody who needs a form to focus on. And some people can't identify with like the formless idea of having a guru that you don't know what he looks like or actually sounds like, just your interpretation in your mind and stuff. So it's a lot less, that guru is a lot more infallible than a human guru, but a lot less easy for a human being to identify with. So that's where a physical guru, and especially the one you can find that's the most, that you can recognize as the most moral and perfect in character, is your best thing for a human guru. I try to work with the non-physical guru, my guardian, and I've had, well, some success with that, which I won't go into, but it's not like a guru I can talk to all the time either. It's like, if he wants to tell me something, that guru will tell me something. Otherwise, I can try in vain for months and get no contact or anything. So it's one of those kind of things. A human guru is more approachable and accessible, if that clears up the issue at all.
Okay, Desi says Babalaos and Santeros as will not allow anyone to clean sacred areas with ammonia anywhere near the Orisha houses, are absolutely forbidden to use ammonia because of its ability to destroy the etheric connections, I presume.
Yeah, I believe it. I've never used ammonia for that, but I 100% believe it.
Beth says, my nanny was a voodoo practitioner but sanctified in the church.
Yeah, and not all, voodoo is not, most of voodoo, what you would call voodoo, most of it is not negative. But of course it's been perverted for that.
Well, movies love to make everything negative. Yeah. Okay, so Julia says, I would think that the capturing of souls per se is more a kind of energy or element of life, more to do with the current or just past life than the soul as I'd think of it.
Yeah, I don't know that the distinctions are that important, but I'd agree with you on that one. You're right. That it would be more the, like, yeah. Considering that we have past lives and things, it would be more that current incarnation of the person that you'd be capturing, not really the immortal spirit. You can't capture anything like that. The soul is like the astral body, and so a bad practitioner could capture that astral body at the moment of death. But it's not like your real self is the immortal spirit, not your astral body. So I think it would be really nasty to an individual short term, but long term it wouldn't have an effect on you, because it would be just my belief is, without really knowing the truth of the matter, my belief is that astral body would die off and then you would be reborn in another body again, and I don't know how long that would take or anything. So without honestly knowing anything about the process, I would think it would just be a temporary thing anyway, if it was effective.
So Jono says, nah, black magic is fascinating, but it's not for me. Maybe it can even be good for other people, but I don't want to work with it. It's not my path. Me neither.
Me too.
Sundrop says, thanks, I'm a newbie and don't want to get into anything dangerous. Well, just, a basic way of looking at the decision-making process of whatever you want to do is, would you want someone to do that to you? And if the answer is no, don't do it to someone else. And Desi says, laugh out loud at Jono, I know, right? As far as not working with the black stuff. Sundrop says, yeah, I find black magic interesting, but still being careful. Curiosity will get me in trouble. Desi says, at Beth, yep, a lot of people from New Orleans say they're 90% Catholic and 110% Voodoo. Sundrop says, there are those that do both good magic and black as a last resort. See, now that's a definitional thing, because, black magic is, generally speaking, defined as something that you would disapprove of, regardless of whatever it is that your personal take is on things. But self-defense, the person who needs to defend themselves doesn't think of it as black magic, it's self-defense. So it's like situational. Some of that stuff is not clear, like this is white, this is black. It's all shades of gray, and like the thunderstorm that hits the tree and kills it is bad for the tree.
It's a human definition. Black and white are human definitions of whether it's based on the perspective of the person deciding that, whether it's hurtful or harmful, to them, how they would feel about it. So it's even a very personal definition.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taylor says, that's really interesting. Thank you for the expansion. Beth says, Desi, I'm from the Deep South. It was the norm where I'm from. Sundrop says, I'm still not well, so I have to wait until I'm well. Would you suggest healing work for myself, even though my energy is low to heal myself?
As long as you don't overdo it and make yourself more ill by expending more energy than you have available to help heal yourself, I would say do it.
I would say your best option would be to get into nature and sort of absorb natural energy as much as possible, because life wants to improve and increase life. That's kind of its bottom line. So if you're low on energy, you go to a source that has more energy available and absorb it instead of trying to do it to yourself. So that would be my recommendation. You can work with crystals, or you can work with trees, or something along those lines to get more in balance with your own body's natural states and increase its ability to fight things off. So Beth, Desi says, I don't think energy can be destroyed. Isn't that the dictum in science? Spirit is energy. I can imagine you can't destroy spirit but reduce it to pure source energy. I don't even think I'm going to try to answer that question. I agree that it can't really be destroyed, though. Beth says, I've used some of it when I was young for self-defense, but it's not my nature. Well, yeah, and it's like, peaceful and kindness and generosity is my nature. But if somebody is going to harm me, or is trying to harm me, or my children, or my love, or whatever, or myself, then self-defense is an option, and I will do whatever is necessary in the moment that I feel is necessary in order to protect us.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And with the, remember the vagueness of the definition. If it's something like that, it's not black magic you're doing. It may be harmful magic or hurtful magic if you have to do it, but you may have to do it potentially.
And it's harmful to the person who's trying to harm you. I figure it's their karma.
Yeah, I agree. And I pretty much agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they asked for it, like really loudly.
Yeah.
And usually I give people many, many chances before I get to the point where, okay, this is not happening. I'm not letting this happen anymore. And in an emergency situation, I certainly have been known to pull out all stops and done it in such a weird way that it leaves people scratching their heads and confused and leave the area because they don't know what's going on. So, humor and confusion can work just as well as like, kind of stuff, for sure. So Marisol says, hi, Siofra and Ian. Hi, Marisol. Water energizes me. Yes, water is good. I love water. Julia says, I will tell you how cautious I am about anything remotely negative magically. Any sort of magic which I would classify as defensive or returning negative, I use whole different tools for. Well, I believe that if somebody is sending out negative energy, it's theirs to deal with, and I send it back to them because taking responsibility for your own actions is part of my belief system.
And I agree that it's fine to send it back to them, even if they aren't sending it on purpose. It's still their energy. Send it back to them if it's coming out of a person, because sometimes people can be project accidentally just whenever they're angry or something. It's always their emotions, and they're the ones that need to deal with it, not spew it out all over everybody.
Well, if you let people bully other people and they get away with it, or they get encouraged to do it by their peers and they get rewarded for bad behavior, they will continue to do it. And no one is going to change what they're doing unless it's in their best interest to not be like that anymore. So it would seem. I don't know why, but that seems to be the way it is. So by making them take care of their own stuff doesn't mean you can't help them if you want to, but it is their responsibility, and we are each of us individually responsible for our own
exactly
actions.
I mean, if that's a whole other issue. But yeah, that's basically my take on it. A person could choose to do that if they were really wanted to be self-abnegating and stuff, to take on somebody else's bad karma, but it just
I don't think it helps the other person in the long run.
Well, no, I don't either. I think it's one of those things like you might find a Christian wanting to do that or something, because a lot of them do have good intentions, even though in my opinion they go about it completely wrong. But
martyrdom.
Martyrdom, that's the word.
Yeah.
You could have somebody who wants, and I would be doubtful if it would really help the person either, honestly. I don't think that really works. A person needs to learn something from the life they're in. That's why we're here, and they need to learn to deal with these things themselves. So, sorry, I didn't mean to go too far on
Desi says a rapid, unscheduled disassembly. Yeah. Julia says agrees with Siofra about defense entirely and emergencies. Jono says, yeah, definitional thing. My working to break up a toxic friendship is still working. It's in my fridge right now. That can be considered black magic, but my intentions are very pure. Well, yeah. Kara says, hello, Siofra and Ian. Hi. Hi, Carolee. Sundrop says, I've heard of cases where justice wasn't served in the law, so then dark work was done to bring justice. Well, I don't know about those particular cases, and it's like without an actual situation in front of me, I don't know exactly what I would think about it.
Yeah, we tend to deal with what the universe puts. I figure what the universe puts in my way is intended for me, so to speak,
or at least intended for you to decide to choose
or
not
with,
to choose.
Yes, yeah. But as far as things like that, I tend to try to go for things that are individually affecting me one way or another.
Well, yeah, and that's the way me and the universe have worked for a long time. The universe will set things in my path, and then I decide whether or not I'm willing to pick them up and go with them and do something about them, or if I don't feel it's right for me, I can always say no. So that's, will, self-will, determination, choice, responsibility, all that jazz. So Beth says, Sundrop, that happens a lot behind the scenes. Desi says, self-defense probably of a threatening non-human being as an absolute last resort, something good to know and have in the toolbox, but hopefully never have to use, like asafoetida. Oh,
keep it locked way away in a toolbox and a bunch of plastic
and
boxes
outside,
and Tupperware containers.
Outside of the house with the asafoetida. He had some, and I made him take it out of the house.
that smell will penetrate everything.
No kidding.
It escaped from any container you put it in.
So Sundrop says some other witches said they've done it. People can say anything, Sundrop. Think about it. How much stuff is out there? People are scamming people constantly. People can say they can do anything, but whether it's true or not is a whole different subject.
Well, and that is because some people may try to do things genuinely, though, but not a lot of people are really effective if they're not.
Most of them are ego, self-denial, tricking themselves into thinking they've done something that hasn't actually happened.
Unless somebody's serious enough to spend time and effort on doing it, then they can pack a wallet. But most of the people who do that kind of things decide in one instance, like, oh, because one thing that happens or something.
I'm all powerful. That was all me.
Yeah, so there's
Self-delusion.
a lot of that. Though people can try, their effectiveness can vary depending on the person, for sure.
Sundrup says watching too many movies. Yeah, you got to watch out for movies. Remember, it's fiction. Someone wrote that story. Beth says, I will be right back, you guys. I have 4 cats and a chihuahua waiting for their dinner. Yes, I'm sure they're not going to wait happily while you listen to us. Julia says, laughing my ass off at like this asafoetida and seconds that. Yeah, no kidding. Mary says, I use certain workings as far as needing protection from bad people to keep them at bay. Yeah. And, when it comes to negative spirit beings and so forth, I figure if you make yourself unpalatable, if you're not something that they like to eat, then they're going to not bother you. And that's pretty much one of the reasons that I work a lot with light energy. Because most negative spirits don't like light energy. That's one of the things that they find disturbing to their way of existing and so forth. So, natural defenses are being as true to yourself and being yourself as much as possible and true to your path. And that will eliminate a whole bunch of stuff in general.
I feel like defense is always a good thing. I mean, in general, if it's defensive, you bet. I don't see any problem with having defenses up. If somebody else stubs their toe on your defense, that's their problem.
Yeah, there's that, which we've had happen every so often, where we're not actively trying to hurt anybody, but someone runs straight into our brick wall and goes away with a bloody nose. It's like, okay, maybe you shouldn't have been doing that. It's always interesting when someone feels they have permission to invade your space astrally when you've told them it's not okay. I had to really put my foot down with one of our former teachers because her approach to her craft was basically if she taught you anything, it was now her responsibility to keep an eye on what you were doing for the rest of your life. And if you did anything she didn't like or thought was bad, then she needed to take you down and stop you. And when we told her that wasn't okay and to leave us alone, she kept trying to trick me, first in dreams and showing up in the astral, thinking she was going to get through my natural defenses. I had to spend months, actually, confronting her outside of my house on the other side and yet again telling her no, go away and leave me alone. You're not allowed here. This is not your space anymore.
Well, a lot of that was ego. She was a little too convinced of her own power and importance, which is why she thought she needed to be responsible for everything you did ever since. Like her every action would influence you so much. I mean, I don't know. It was ridiculous, but that was a huge ego issue, and you have to watch out for that for sure. And people who profess to be teachers and things like that.
So Carol Lee says, asafoetida, I haven't worked with that herb. I know they have it in the vitamin shop for calming nerves in they're in capsules. Even in capsules, I imagine it stinks if you open the bottle. Desi says, I've got my asafoetida powder already in a container wrapped in 2 more thick freezer bags buried in activated charcoal
That's
bits.
what you need, yeah.
And still...
And the weird thing is, there are some Indian...
It's a spice that you use in cooking.
Yes.
For Indian dishes, yes.
Apparently it tastes better than it smells, and it doesn't smell like that once it's cooked. But
apparently.
But I haven't ever eaten anything that I've known had it.
Julia says, Carolee, they are in capsules for a reason. You'd be more inspired to throw up than to swallow if you would be able to smell it. Yes. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it is, yes, a stinky herb. Carolee, Julia, he. Desi says that Carolee, might be good to pick up the asafoetida in capsules just for protection work. Kara says, yeah, true. Then you have it safely contained in small amounts. You don't have to open up the entire thing. Sophia says, hello, I'm happy to come back. Last week I was too shocked because my homeland is under terror attacks. I'm so sorry. It's terrible what's going on in the world, and it's always the people that have nothing to do with it that pay the biggest price. So I'm sorry that that's happening. Sundrop says, I can't even celebrate the season properly because I'm stuck here in bed. It's so depressing. Well, hopefully you'll get over your COVID soon. Yeah, we right now, we had some family members, they're not like direct relatives of ours, who went on a cruise and they now have influenza, and one of them has developed pneumonia and is in the hospital. So, yeah, it's nothing to sneeze at. Ha ha. I didn't mean to make a pun there. Um, but definitely, it can be pretty serious trying to get better from that kind of any ordeal like that, health wise. So, so Carolee says that Julia, oh yeah. Sophia says, yes. Sundrop says, I can't even celebrate. I got that. Ian says, Sundrop's hugs to you. Sundrop says, thanks for hugs. And then you have more
Hugs.
More hugs. Those are hugs.
It takes me forever to find.
To find the hugs. Yeah. Okay.
I'm slow at the emojis.
Well, what can we say? That's just the way we are. You have more emojis than I have. But yes. Yes, I could actually look at one of those. But yeah, getting well, it takes time. I'm feeling better finally from the falls that I took. I can now sleep on my right side without being in agony and when I start to roll over in the middle of the night, so that's a serious improvement. Beth says, Sophia, Bess, I'm so sorry. We all saw this coming, sending you protective energy. Yes. Carolee says at Sundrop, you can still enjoy the season by reading about it, the stories, and tea when sick. And it is about being inward anyway. So there's nothing that makes you more inward than being sick and not being able to do anything. Sundrop says, oh, okay, thanks,
I usually
Kara.
get so bored when I'm sick.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's difficult. I know when I'm not feeling well, it's like I've learned at this point that I have to just sit still and not do anything and just like, that's it. Cool my jets, whether I'm bored or not. Like find something else to do or whatever, but still have to wait it out and let your body recover. You only have a certain amount of energy. I think that thinking alone takes a certain amount of energy from you. So, I can't imagine the amount of energy it takes for us to do true magic and so forth and to do those connections. I have found recently that when I'm not feeling well, the fairies like to come around and try and help, which is very interesting when that happens. They're not always successful, but they always try. They want to make me feel better. And as he says, Sundrop, hope you feel better soon. Marisol says, get better, Sundrop, soon. Sundrop says, thanks, Dizzy. I get tired doing the smallest things. Yeah. Marisol says, so glad you feel better, Siofra. Yeah, me too. Although I'm still having the weird body temperature thing. So apparently I do have some blood test results they finally called me on, and I'm going to call them tomorrow and find out what they have to say about it. If they gleaned anything from my test results. Because apparently if I'm too active, my body temperature just plummets. And it did that yesterday, cleaning up and packing up the temple. I started feeling weird and then took my temperature and it was 95.2. And I'm like, that's not right. That's wrong. So Beth says, Sundrop, healing energy all around you, unfinished learning to be comfortable while you're uncomfortable is challenging. Yes. Sophia says, thank you. We are lucky. We are not here. We are not living there for a long time, but it's still very painful. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm so sorry. Luna says, I hope everyone feels better soon. Thank you. We're all feeling pretty good at the moment, except for my weird misunderstanding with my body as far as how to monitor my temperature. I'm quite baffled by that, but oh well. We'll figure it out eventually. But, the stone that I left at the power spot is helping me in other ways. So I've been wearing this pretty much nonstop since then. Beth says, Siofra, body temperature, oh my, I've been waking up so hot at night for the last week. It's not menopause. I went through that about 15 years ago. Mary says an infection can cause a rise in temperature as well as a drop. Yeah, they tested all that stuff the first time it happened, and they went down to 94 something. So they ruled out an infection. Donna says, you're looking healthy, Siofra. Ian is sounding great. This makes me happy as I can be with this new war. Yeah. And that's the thing, is like trying to remember what it is we can do something about is very difficult, because it can lead us to becoming quite depressed when we focus on the things that we can't do anything about. And as empaths, we often feel the things that we can't help with either. And that doesn't help us, and it definitely doesn't help the people that are suffering, because we're not there and there's nothing we can physically do. Lighting a candle to try and help a little bit that way, but it seems like not much. I have to monitor some of the information that I take in when things like that are happening, so that I don't overwhelm my own sense of empathy and focus on things I don't have any direct ability to change. It's annoying. If only we were all so all-powerful, we could just think things away. It would be nice. But anyway, thank you, Jono. I'm feeling okay, except for when my body temperature goes into the toilet. Then it says, a friend badly sprained her ankle last week. I offered to send energy and she accepted. I felt ill for 2 days, nothing unusual for me, and didn't send the energy as I felt off. Then I started, and there's more to come. Guess we'll see what she started. The internet's not fast enough for us. Sometimes you can accidentally send energy to somebody without doing it on a conscious level. So we'll wait and see what you have to say about that. Hopefully it'll come through eventually. I know when I started doing healing work, I made myself really sick. And so I went and got some lessons.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Two things that can happen. You can accidentally, if you're healing somebody else, you can accidentally put some of your bad traits into them if you aren't careful. And then if you're getting healing, you might accidentally absorb some of the bad traits of the person doing it. So that needs to be accounted for in the healing. Use an external source of energy.
So Luna finished her sentence. And then I started to feel really awful, lots of energy rushing through my body, legs were twitching like crazy, couldn't sleep, etc. Had to lay on my hands and push the energy out via my palms into the ground. Sounds like a good technique to use for something like that, to get the energy out of yourself.
Yeah.
And send it back into the earth. You might have accidentally connected with her when you agreed to send her energy, even though you didn't do it consciously.
Yeah, that's one of the things you have to be careful of. If you put energy into something else, you might get something back. And Barton recommends you always use external energy. So like you'd pull down the healing force, the vital force from the universe, and send that to the person directly instead of mingling your energy, because it is too easy to accidentally transfer something back and forth, and it could go either way.
Yeah. And one of the things that I do a lot when I'm healing in person, doing energy work, is I pull the earth energy up, and I use that, and I send it out of myself, but not my energy, just through me as a conduit. And then any energy that it collects, I send back into the earth, so that I'm not doing that exchange kind of a thing. So that can be helpful.
Yeah, it's just something to be aware of.
Marisol says, exactly, Siofra. I wish I could do something. I'm lighting candles and incense. I wish there was more I could do. Yeah. Luna says, I think I had a buildup of energy as I offered to help and didn't send the energy quick enough. Possible. Desi says, anyone who chants mantra 108 recitations of the Kuan Yin mantra can help to heal. Sophia says, can you do a healing for someone for distance without their consent permission? Well, you can, but I wouldn't, and that's one of the things I require.
Unless a person can't
unless they're
consent,
unconscious.
like if they're unconscious
right.
or something, yeah.
Implied consent works for energy work just as it does for an EMT who is at a scene and a person just said, I don't want you to take me to the hospital, and then they become unconscious, and then they put them in the ambulance and try and save their lives and take them to the hospital, with the idea being that if they were in their right mind and they knew that without intervention they would be dying, then they would accept the help. And I sort of have that attitude towards energy work. If I know someone who is in a coma or like that, it doesn't matter to me whether or not they've asked for my help, if they're a family especially, and then I will send energy to them anyway, and they can certainly reject the energy. I do it in such a way that the energy I send a person, if their spirit is aware enough of what's happening and they really are ready to die and it's time for them to go, they can always say no to the healing, because if you impose the healing on someone who's ready to pass and then you force them to stay here longer than they were meant to, that can cause some ripple effects down the line, which are not necessarily positive. So learning how to accept that is difficult when you're wanting to do healing. So Luna says, when I finally managed to send the energy to her 3 days later, I felt so much better. Well, good. As he says, Namo Guan, he's going to say that.
The mantra.
Please help, please heal the issue. Julia says, remember, energy can be and often is contagious. Think of the last time you were angry around others, but not at them. Well,
That's
yeah.
very true.
Very true. Luna says, I also started working with Hecate recently. Think it was her way of prodding me into action? Maybe so. That says, I can't stand the energy in an ambulance. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And Desi says, we asked a fellow in a coma for consent using a pendulum. That's one way of doing it if you're there in person. Donna says, thank you for your words on healing energy. Please give Luna a supportive but severe lecture on using her energy for healing other people. I think we've already done what we can on that. It's entirely up to Luna to decide how to use her energy or not to. And I would never impose my will on her. Lecture-wise, maybe. But, everyone has to decide what's right. And when I found out that, what happened with me, I was doing a healing in person on someone, and I put myself into their body, and was feeling what was happening, and I was like removing the pain that they had, and then they sort of broke physical contact with me and walked off while I was in the middle of doing that. And I got really sick. I mean, I woke up the next morning, couldn't move. It was like I had the flu without any other symptoms except the complete and total exhaustion. And every time I thought, why do I feel like that? I kept seeing her and her shoulder that I'd worked on. I'm like, okay. And I realized now what it was because I put myself in her. She left with my energy, the majority of it, and left me without it because I hadn't extracted myself from her. So when I was doing that kind of energy work from that moment on, there was a rule that, I'm the one who decides when contact is stopped, not you. It's like, if I'm going to do this, I put my hands on you, you wait till I take my hands off before you walk away, so I, can extract my energy.
It's a lot more rare, but you can have that, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like, So, Luna says, I use most of my energy on Jono, willingly and lovingly, I hasten to add. Beth says, ouch, Siofra, that hurts. Yeah, it was not good. But it was certainly a learning experience, and that's when I found a psychic healer and called him up on the phone and asked him to train me, and I found him in the white pages. Apparently there was a psychic association in Vancouver, British Columbia. And they were listed in the white pages. And this was before the internet, of course. I had to have extraordinary means at my disposal to be able to find things in some cases. But that one was easy. I just looked it up in the phone book and went, oh, okay. Called him up on the phone, got an appointment, went in and talked to him. He did a spontaneous testing of my healing ability without me knowing what was going on. Took me down in a room and announced to everybody what a great healer I was and how powerful I was and how I got everything right. And I'm like, what? I was quite confused. And then I went and I saw him for him to teach me how his particular style of energy healing. So, yeah, it was certainly interesting. But it sort of dovetailed in with the exercises I was given when I was a kid by the spirit voice that would come to me when I was getting ready to go to sleep at night. And that's when I learned about my chakras, was when I was a kid, but I did not know what they were called. And he kind of expanded on that. It's always interesting how the universe tries to send you the information you need if you're paying attention.
A lot of times I find it's there before I need it, so yeah, I get a lot of things that I need from stuff that's already here that I didn't know about. Especially like information from books and things, it's like, oh. Just recently I had not a mantra, but I guess you'd call it a hymn to Lakshmi that kept falling out and landing on me until I finally opened it up and looked at what it was, and I didn't even realize I had this nice invocation to Lakshmi. It kept falling out of a book that I had. So finally I took a look at it. What the heck is that thing falling out of that book?
Apparently, it really wanted your attention.
Yep.
Yep, and I get information in weird ways. And technology is one of the ways that's starting to come to me now, because it's one of the available methods and stuff where things can come. My sister, her abilities are interesting in that she sees things on as a news, like, breaking news, this has just happened, when it hasn't happened yet. So the way her mind works to make that manifest itself so that she can have a vision, basically, of something that's happening 24 hours later is interesting to me. Desi says, anyone know how marigolds are used magically? Not particularly. I haven't seen anything on marigolds lately. Sundrop says, I just want to hurry and get better so I can get back to normal life. I want to go back to our witch's store. They have lots of interesting books. Staff is helpful.
Marigolds are solar.
Yes, they would be, because they're very golden, most of them.
The color
Golden,
stuff,
orange.
So
yeah.
use them for solar uses, anything, relating to sunlight. Sunlight has all the analogies of the sun, so healing, warming, that kind of thing. Sun is also the center, so it also represents balance and harmony.
And also attraction, because of the intense gravitational pull it has. Likes to pull things towards itself as a solar energy thing.
But anyway, yeah, so specifically, yeah, they're nice gold color and everything.
I see. John says, do you see yourself ever getting back into paranormal investigations? Well, if one comes across my path that looks interesting. The last one that came across my path looked very not interesting. It seemed like the guy was having a mental health crisis, and something didn't seem right, and I didn't feel safe going over to his location, and I decided to pass. It was just a lot of red flags came up when I talked to him on the phone. So you have to be careful of some of that stuff. But right now, I haven't had a lot of inquiries, and when it gets to be winter time and winter weather starts coming around here, then I stay pretty local. I don't like to travel, so.
It's pretty hard to deal with some of the people, too, when they're having a paranormal issue, because people are funny about it the same way they are about magic. It's like they believe in it while it's happening, but the moment it's stopped, they want to disbelieve it, not believe anything happened, and forget all about it, and not talk to you anymore, and that kind of thing too. So
and it's either that, or they're convinced they know exactly what's happening. If you try to tell them that it's different than what they think, they don't believe you, and they think you're trying to tell them that they're stupid and a liar. And it's not that. It's just that they're conflating things, because you can have like a paranormal event taking place and something wrong with your electrical wiring in your house, for example. It's one of the ones I dealt with. So yeah, people can get kind of difficult in some cases. So Ava says, hi Ava. And then it says, I'd use them for healing marigolds. Sundrop says, is paranormal investigating a gift? Do you need experience in that area? Well, let us say that paranormal investigation is something to enter with your eyes wide open and you have to have an open mind in order to figure out what's really going on. It's good not to have a specific bias when you walk into an environment, because then you're more likely to try and categorize the events based upon your personal bias. For example, a lot of Christian paranormal investigators are very fond of finding demons and, portals to hell and so forth, when in reality it could be a non-human being that's got stuck in the house, and the energy from a ley line that's been diverted and is causing a portal to open, and issues, and have nothing to do with hell. So personal biases are really one of the major things to keep in mind.
Yeah, well, and also keep in mind that the person themselves may be the problem, and maybe there's not a paranormal problem. We have run into some, especially Siofra has run into a couple of pretty strange people, and a couple of people with, she was dealing with some with mental issues and
shared delusions,
poltergeists and stuff. But yeah, so you have to watch out too, because there may be not necessarily anything paranormal going on, so you have to be cautious on those lines.
Yeah, I met a couple once in a trailer, and I that was when I decided never to go to a place by myself, because I realized that they could have driven off with me. And they were kind of surprising, because they said they had a haunting in their trailer, and I asked them how long they've been having trouble with the spirit. They said about 9,000 years, and I'm like, okay, well, that's not the usual answer I get when I ask that question. And things went downhill from there. And, we had the Philadelphia experiment, and aliens and all sorts of things came into this, and it was a couple, a husband and wife, and it was a shared delusional state that they were experiencing, and there really wasn't anything I could do. I did what I could.
You didn't call Mark Harmon, though.
No, I did not. He says that because they had posters of Mark Harmon all over their trailer. I don't know if he was a deity for them, or maybe an alien, maybe.
In case you don't know, Mark Harmon is an actor who was on
NCIS
for many years.
For many years, yes. So, yeah. Anyway, as he says, neat, thank you. I got a bunch of miracles for the Day of the Dead. Beth says, miracles are used a lot in healing energy. Sundrop, absolutely, you have to be trained. And Sundrop says, okay, Beth. Well, yeah, you definitely want to have some equipment, and you want to have some natural gifts, and you want to have a sense of openness and also skepticism. Beth says, Sundrop, you can have natural abilities, but it's best to have a diverse team in your corner. Sundrop says, I wonder, my parents are elderly and think they will not be around much longer. I wonder, could I experience paranormal activity if they die in the home? It's not that common for people to get stuck on this side. It's not like every death has the potential, I suppose, for the person who's crossing over to decide that they don't want to cross over. But the ones I've encountered have been pretty specific experiences. Like, I encountered one spirit locally here who was still in the house because he died alone and there was no one to find his body, and he stayed with his body too long. And then by the time someone found him, he couldn't find his way out to the other side. So, but in most cases, people pass and they just go, and they don't leave their spirit behind. So maybe not. Jono says, this is backwards because you guys are my mentors, but I'm proud of you for turning down cases you didn't feel comfortable with. It sets a good example to us. Backwards, yes.
Oh, thank you.
And it's true. I mean, that's one of the things, is we try to model good behavior when it comes to all of these subjects. Sundrop says, thanks, Beth. Beth says, Sundrop, oh dear, yes, I took care of my mom for 7 years. She died in my arms, and across the road, for 7 days, she was all around me. Sundrop says, oh wow. As he says, and compassion regarding paranormal investigation. Ghosts are just people. Well, yeah, and it's interesting to me that people are so afraid of ghosts in general, and I'm like, you do realize that you just are a spirit that happens to have a body, and they are just a spirit that happens not to have one right now. They're both spirits. I mean, just because you're in a body doesn't mean you're special. Amber says, hearts. Thank you, Amber. Beth says, Sundrop, I don't recommend it. I did a number on my health. Sundrop says, okay, I just want to know when the time comes. I don't want to be scared. Well, that's the thing, is like knowing you have, creating healthy boundaries is important. Knowing that you have the natural authority to tell spirits what to do and where to go, and what not to do and where not to go, being able to set those psychic boundaries. It's like I've had some experiences where someone's had a lot of haunting and I get there and it's gone because they knew I was coming. That makes it a little bit more difficult for me to do my thing. But really it's about all of the stuff that we talk about. Knowing who you are is paramount, because it can influence you in ways that you don't understand, or yeah. Sometimes you can have physical sensations. I've been in places where I've had the physical sensation of how someone has died, which is a new thing for me in the last 10 years or so, maybe 15 years. I can't remember when it started. But if you don't know your own body, then you may think something's actually happening to you instead of you picking up on something else. And yeah, she's right about having a good team with you, because if that healthy skepticism for most people is harder to maintain if you're by yourself. You're much more prone to getting like sucked into the emotional state of the person that's wanting you to help them.
Well, not only that, but as far as figuring out what's going on, two heads are always better than one. I mean,
Yeah.
In most cases, especially you don't want to bring somebody along with you to an investigation who's going to be disruptive, or like while you're trying to do something, take your staff, the coyote tail on your staff, and try to tease a dog with it.
Oh yeah, that was obnoxious. Couldn't believe she did that.
But anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Don't want to get off the subject.
Being respectful of your fellow investigators is important. Beth says, I don't recommend it. It did a number on my health. Sundrop says, okay, I just want to know when the time comes. I don't want to be scared. Beth says, I wasn't afraid. I talked to her and told her I missed her, but was happy she wasn't in pain anymore. Sundrop says, I don't want it to happen anytime soon. My dad is 94. My mom is 82 and thinks she's going to die soon. Well, eventually it will happen to all of us. That's one of the things we cannot avoid. Regardless of all the stories about those immortal alchemists out there. I don't think that's probably true. If it is, they're not in my neighborhood, so.
Hey, if you are, contact us.
That's right. If you're out there, send us an email.
Especially remains of Philosopher's Stone.
That's right. And we want proof. Not just your say-so. It's got to have evidence to go with it. We're scientific that way.
And the Bard makes it pretty clear how to make it if you're that advanced, which not even close myself, but
Sundrop says she can't predict her death. But people can think themselves to death, unfortunately, so try to distract her into other subjects when she starts to talk like that. Get her involved in watching a TV show or talking about an interesting subject, something that she likes, to get her mind off of the subject. She could be here another 10 years. Yes, she could be. My mom is going to turn 94 this year. So I know she can't last forever, but she's still here.
good genetics, though.
Yeah, we have a
Gotta say.
longevity gene in our family tree. Just found out that we've got some Nordic genetics in our bloodline, apparently. I found it out by accident. My sister hadn't told me about it. We hadn't talked about it. But I saw an article about surnames and how certain surnames were transformed from the original Viking languages, whatever they were, to the language that they are now. And one of the ones they mentioned in the article was one of our ancestors that I know about. I mentioned it to my sister, and she says, well, that explains why that showed up in my DNA. I'm like, oh, okay. Apparently it's there. So Jono says, sun drop 94. That's good genes. If I make it to 60, I'm going to be proud of myself. Well, hope you make way past that. Sun drop says, especially since she has the C virus too with her age. Yeah, it's being ill. The older you are, the harder it is to recover. Carolee says, my great grandma lived until she was 98. Good. Sundrop says, my dad doesn't have the virus, thankfully. Well, that's awesome, because that stuff is pretty contagious. And you're all in the same house. So good going that you managed to keep him from getting it, or he's just got a better immune system. Who knows? I don't. Linda says, my ex did that. He died early this year, age 67. He had no family or friends, so I arranged the funeral, etc. The coroner told me that they weren't sure what to put on his certificate. Like how he died? Or who he was related to? I'm hoping that the family member that's in the hospital is going to recover from this, but the fact that he's in the hospital is probably a good indication that he has a better chance in this case. Beth says, sad eyes. Then it says, apparently he had the body of a 95-year-old. Well, taking care of the house that you live in and occupy as a spirit is rather an important thing to do, don't you think? I mean, really, when you come to think of it, this is your vehicle for experiencing all this stuff here in this reality. And so if you don't treat it well and abuse it like crazy, or have bad genes, which is just happenstance and where you're born and so forth, it doesn't last as long, for sure. And it says, no real cause of death. I'd imagine he thought himself to death. That can happen too. I mean, there's any number of cases out there where someone has been misdiagnosed with a fatal disease. And, because something got mixed up at a lab, and by the time the doctors figured out it was wrong, the person was dead because they were told that they were going to die and they believed it. So certainly you can do that to yourself. And it says he was not a good person, and I think karma smacked him in the face. Yeah, that's not the only thing, though, because we know lots of people who are not really good that still continue to exist without any kind of destruction happening to them. So, yeah, karma is not usually instantaneous and doesn't always happen in the life that you're earning it. So, there. Yeah, the way it goes. But hey, makes you feel better about it. It's fine by me. Maybe this is the time it caught up to him. They say the good die young and the bad live forever, or whatever. It seems to be the case sometimes. Sundrop says, I think that's why it's good to have second or third opinions. Yeah. And to not believe everything that people tell you, and to be skeptical. Beth says, I need a wine spritzer after all this death. I have so much compassion for all of you that are going through this journey. Well, it's that time of year, isn't it? That one comes along, and death is almost always the subject, because at least up here with winter coming and so forth and things getting slower and whatnot, it's one of those things. When it says they thought he had cancer, but he wouldn't allow them to investigate. The postmortem showed they were wrong. No cancer. Yeah, all right. And that's the thing, is like how we think and what we believe can be an important factor in our health. There's no doubt about it. Not the only thing. I had, as a massage therapist, there's a chiropractor here in town who basically blamed everything that happened to all of his patients on them not having the right mindset and thinking in a bad way. And most of the people I worked on had been in car accidents. And I had more than one patient come in to see me who was very depressed because their chiropractor had told them that they weren't getting better because it was their own fault. And I said, you got hit by a truck. Remember that.
Yeah, I mean,
Trucks are real. And you got hit by a truck. That's not your thinking. And certainly having a positive attitude can help you recover better. And I'm always in favor of that. But to blame all of your ills and all of your pain on the fact that you're not thinking straight, and yet you were hit by a truck is a bad approach, in my opinion. So Beth says, I lost my cousin 4 days ago. I dreamed he was going before I got the news. I just hold him in compassion and love. Yeah, it's interesting when sometimes you can feel family members getting ready to pass. I had that happen with my grandmother. I didn't even know she was in the hospital. And I saw her passing over. I saw my grandfather come to get her and her getting young and everything and them going off together. And I woke up and I'm like, wow, my grandmother just died. And then the phone rang. It was my sister to tell me that my grandmother had just passed. And it says, one good thing came of his death. I inherited his elderly cat, Ziggy Stardust, who is watching you with me now, all cozy on the bed. Hi, Ziggy. Right. Kitty, kitty, kitty.
Anybody who names their cat Ziggy Stardust is a...
Can't be all bad.
Yep.
That's pretty cute.
I'm not a fan of all Bowie's music, but that album I liked a lot.
That's okay. I have some people whose cats like to watch me. So I've been told. I am a cat person. We are waiting for the new bunny habitat to arrive. It's supposed to be here tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. Oh, Luna says, I named him. Well, good name, Luna. We won't even ask what he used to be called because we don't want him to go into the past. Oh, look, the seagulls are back. I just saw one go by. We had a bunch of seagulls like vanished on the coast of Oregon. Apparently, an avian flu hit them pretty bad, and we were without seagulls for, about 2 months, I think? And they seem to have recovered enough to come back to the area. It's the first one I've seen going through our yard, so that's kind of interesting. Beth says, all the more reason for us to celebrate this life we have, to do everything your heart desires in this life. Yep. Why not? Have a good life. That's a good thing. And that's the thing, is like, as empaths, we often have a hard time enjoying ourselves when we know that other people are hurting and feel guilty that we're having a good time when someone else is not. You have to remember your life is the one you're supposed to be embracing. And yes, it's a terrible thing that other people are going through terrible things, but it's not like disrespectful or a terrible thing for you to enjoy yourself. It's hard to remember sometimes. Luna says, nope, I named him 14 years ago when my ex first got him as a kitten. Ah, cool. Vlad says, my cat Gino is here listening to you. I think he finds it very relaxing. Well, cool. I like that.
Cats are welcome here.
That's right. And little dogs too, if they're interested. Yeah, we are definitely a animal-friendly household when it comes down to it. Apparently I have a soothing voice to cats. Unless I'm yelling at them, which I won't do now.
You have a lap they like. They don't like my lap as well.
Well, my lap is often sitting still in one place for a longer period of time.
Except for Jasmine, I miss her.
Your lap keeps moving around. That's what's harder for them to adapt to your lap.
Jasmine didn't care. She'd sit on anything.
That's right.
Anything that was holding a book, a computer, or whatever.
Yep,
she
was definitely your cat. She was like, oh, you're my human. Donna says, Nibbler report. Yes, his habitat is coming. We're trying to rearrange our living room to make room for the habitat and start to train him to not go to the bathroom everywhere in existence now that he is now a free-range rabbit and he doesn't know what to do. So I'm approaching it from that point of view. And him and the cat were actually playing this morning. I watched them going at it. and no one got hurt in the play, and it was brief encounters. So Sundrop says, how can people say don't cry when they die when you can't see or talk to them anymore? Some think death is bad and don't like to talk about it. Well, yeah, there's I don't know why people do that. I think it's some misunderstanding. Maybe they think if they talk about it in some cultures, talking about the dead might bring them to you, and they're afraid of ghosts and they don't like them. Or talking about death in general might make it more real and might make it happen. In our country, we definitely have a whole thing trying to avoid the subject of death altogether. and not facing the reality of it. And, sort of like that youthful, I don't know what to call it, idolization of youth instead of the embracing of all the different phases of life
Right.
that we go through. And this is one of the reasons why elder abuse is on the rise, because older people are not considered as valuable for some reason, considering all of our experience in some cases. So yeah, it's like normalizing the discussion is probably a good thing to talk about, you know, it's a natural state of being and we have that. And I understand that they're changing a lot of how they deal with the aftermath of death. There's more green ways that people can um, be put back into the earth instead of just buried in a coffin or cremated. They can be composted, they can be turned into a tree. There's a lot of options becoming available where people are looking at that as more sustainable and more natural. I remember a number of my deaths, and one of the things I liked about a lot of them was when I knew it was time, I could go and sit under a tree and die under a tree and then become part of the ground. So that would be the natural way of things to go. Um, Beth says, "Ah, that's so cute. I love it when a cat chooses you. Such an honor." Yes. Sundrop says, "Oh, I never thought of that." Anna says, "Sundrop, a big problem is that people don't know what to say, but they say things anyway." And that's true. A lot of times people are, yeah, they're they don't know what to say or what to do or if there's anything they can say, and then they choose to say nothing because of it, afraid to make a mistake. But you may not always understand what someone is going through literally in the sense that you went through it before, but as an empath, you can imagine what it would be like if that happened to you, and then you can relate to someone on an emotional level from that place. And you can't do anything to make them feel better. You can just hug them and know that grief is its own thing and it takes time. And everyone goes through it differently. Some people go insane. My mom, she went through, like, she knew her father had been dying for a long time. It's not like it was a surprise. He's been sick for a long time. He lived like 8 years longer than the doctor said he would, because stubbornness runs in our family. But when he did die, she didn't want to accept it. She came up with a conspiracy theory that he was being held hostage in the basement of the hospital and they were experimenting on him with medical experiments and so forth. And then when she went to the funeral home, she started to go through the door and she would find herself out on the street, not remembering how she got there. And it took her several tries to get through the door, because on some level her mind knew that if she made it through the door, then she would know that he actually had passed, and she just wasn't ready. But when her mother passed, it was different, because she was there when she passed and she felt her go. So there wasn't like any surprise, any room for, I wonder what happened, because she was in the moment. But yeah, Sundrop says, "I've talked about the dead. I was told they're dead, as not to talk about them because they're dead." That says, "Sundrop virtual hugs." Sundrop says, "Especially if the dead person lived a bad life." Well, yeah, there's that whole thing about you never speak ill of the dead, which I think is stupid, personally. If they were not a good person when they were alive, whether they become a good spirit when they're dead or not is, I don't care. It doesn't change how they affected me when they were alive, like my father. So, Sundrop says, "Thanks, Beth." Beth says, "I've got to find you guys on Facebook. I would love to join and share pictures and connect more." Siofra Bradigan is my Facebook profile for me. I don't know about other people. We do have a private group right now that people asked me to start, which is Siofra's Magic Alcove on Facebook. And we're just we are running a different kind of group. It's not like the standard group where I make you ask questions or answer questions or whatever. We share information. I don't know. I'm feeling my way through it, because I don't like the standard kind of pagan groups online, because a lot of them are just self promoting and all this other stuff that happens. But feel free. And if you send me a friend's request, you can also send me a message through Messenger to let me know that you're a person that I know, because I try not to take on everybody who sends me a friend's request. So, if that's what you're asking, if it's about us. About everybody else, that's up to them. I don't know what to say. But some of them are on my group on Facebook, so. And you can also connect with me through my email, siofrasmagicalcove@gmail.com. And I get emails fairly regularly. Sometimes people are afraid to write to me. I had one recently where the person wanted to talk to me about something. She told me about it, then she says, ignore me. I'm sorry I bothered you, and I answered back anyway, because it's like, I don't mind answering questions. If I got 1,000 of them a day, I'd be in trouble, but not like I'm overwhelmed with with emails. And so yeah, I'm available. Beth says, I will be under Beth McCracken rainwater. All right. If I can remember for that long. Sometimes my memory is not as much as I'd like it to be. But you know, yeah, dealing with spirits and life and death and being and whatnot, it's just all in the same, all part of the same package. So what would we like to talk about for the last 10 minutes? John says, Siofra, you and Ian are great. I love that you are taking time to help us out. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Arrow says, can I ask a question? That's
course.
why we're
Please
here.
Do.
We'll see if we can answer it. We cannot guarantee anything.
True.
Depends on the question. Arrow laughs. Well, ask your question. Sundrop says, yeah, I agree, Ian and Siofra are great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Just try to be ourselves here. I said no to somebody that, you know, wanted me to do something weird. Arrow says, do you know what moon dreams represent? Well, often the moon is associated with emotion and feelings and so forth, and dreaming about the moon, I would think, would have something to do with that. If you are working with a moon god or goddess, then that would be an indication of that. Depends on the context of the dream and the moon in the dream. Sheila says, did anyone read the Witch's Compass book? Nope. Rose says, like dreams focusing on the moon. I often fly to the moon in my dreams and take flying lessons on the moon, and I have interacted with some lunar beings that are there, and I work with the moon a lot.
Yeah, it's still kind of vague to decide, but it needs to be in context of what you're aware of and stuff and what you think about. It could vaguely, potentially relate to your astral body or your emotional self, potentially. Yeah, you'll just have to look at the specific dreams and see what other events happen and what things point to and stuff and what's happening there.
It could be that a moon god or goddess is trying to reach out through your dreams. Beth says, Sundrop, yes, it's so refreshing finding Siofra and Ian. Authentic kindred spirits are rare jewels. That's a fact. Sundrop says, so if the moon isn't always visible, it's still out. Well, the moon is always in the sky, but it's not always visible, and it's not always in both the night or the day. I mean, the new moon is only out during the day, and the full moon is only out during the night. But any other day, the moon will be in the sky at some point for a period of time, both night and day. If that makes sense. There's only 2 times when the moon is only in the sky during the day and only in the sky at night. But the moon is always there and always affecting us because its gravitational pull and its energy and everything else is there. Jono said, for the last 10 minutes, we all know you know. Just tell us how to become werewolves. Stop being coy. Yeah. Find a werewolf and have them bite you. Pharaoh says, can I describe one? Try and do it and quickly. We've only got 5 minutes left. Beth says, Jono, were you born during a wolf moon? Julia says, yes, best ups and werewolf healing abilities would be most welcome to help me recover from my cataract surgery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we could all use it. Wouldn't that be nice for you just like, boom, some werewolf healing abilities?
That's right. That would be nice, especially the way they work it in the movies. And of course, the moon is a part of that whole thing. Being the werewolf and whatnot, and having the moon affect you directly. So we're hoping that Pharaoh can describe his dream before our show is over. But yeah, I mean, dreams are very personal and individual. I've done a couple of videos on dream interpretation, which can help as far as giving you ideas about how to interpret your own dreams and figure out what it is trying to tell you. I've had all kinds of things happen to me in dreams. I once dreamt that there were 2 suns that came up at the same time, which was quite startling in my dream. Like, wow. I don't know if my interpretation of that was accurate. Z-Sun says, jumped on to say hi at the end. I see. Blessings, Ian and Siofra. Hi, Z-Sun. Thank you for jumping in just to say hi anyway. And if we can't get to your question, Pharaoh, you can always join us next time earlier. Amber says, I love the moon so much. It's so pretty. I never really understood why. I'm a Pisces. Well, I love the moon too, and I'm a Capricorn, so. Pharaoh says, the moon was covered in clouds and it was dark. I couldn't see, but could see its glow. But then it popped out of the clouds and almost danced across the sky. Then it turned into a sun.
That sounds very positive and general.
Yes, that sounds wonderful. That sounds like something is awakening and coming out of the dark and into the day. So could be concepts, ideas, abilities, awakening of your spirit kind of thing. Donna says, thank you for this live stream. I have a lot of love for you both. You're doing good work. Thank you.
Oh, blessed be you. And we think the same of everybody out there. We're glad we can be helpful and say something that has some meaning to somebody else.
Yeah. Kara says, I had a recurring dream of werewolf bit me, turned into on and had babies. Oh, you mean you had a litter. Dario says, love. Hi, Dario. Pharaoh says, sorry, I will see you next time. Thank you. You're welcome, but in the meantime, maybe you can find the video on dream interpretation and start keeping a dream diary if you haven't already. Beth says, Aquarian Pisces rising. Kara says, 1, laugh out loud, not on. Luna says, blessings for the week ahead, all, and thanks, Siofra and Ian. You're welcome. Sundrop says, if I remember, I'll ask next time. Carolee says, yes. Amber says, it's a great channel, very positive. Thank you, Amber. Beth says, sending love and blessings to all of you. Each and every one of you are special. I look forward to our special time together until next week. Pharaoh says, I will. Good. It's always good. Julia says, love you guys so much here. Feels so much like a family is supposed to be, especially Siofra and Ian. Just it hit all the right notes with me, resounds inside. All right.
Well, thank you all for being so sweet.
We appreciate it. Ruth says, bye all. Bye everybody until next week. And stay healthy or get well. Whichever one you're at. So, blessings everybody.